Hello and welcome to the Key Point, the show where ideas meet perspective and conversations shape understanding. On today's episode, we are diving into a topic that touches every community, every culture, and perhaps every one of us. Volunteerism and benevolence, passion or responsibility. Now there is a question. Is lending a helping hand something that we choose out of compassion, or is it something that society should expect from us? I am leaving these and other questions coming up open as I am joined in studio with Ms. Victoire Awovi-Som, who is an entrepreneur, Ms. Nadesh Abire-Bumoge, who is a jurist, and Mr. Abdul Latif Wali, who is a lecturer, all volunteers as well as myself, the host, to uncover volunteerism and benevolence through the lens of the 5 Ws and H. Now, I'll be requesting my very first image, which is going to help us understand what volunteerism and benevolence is. Now, volunteerism is the act of offering time, skills, or service freely or without expecting a payment to support a cause, a community, or organization. On the other hand, benevolence is the quality or the act of being kind, generous, and willing to offer and do good to others. It is a trait of well-being or well-meaning, kind, and charitable, characterized by a disposition to do good. Now, I'll be looking at some few differences in terms of volunteerism and benevolence. So we'll be taking the second image here. Now, volunteerism oftentimes is organized and structured, which means it is through organizations. It is goal-oriented, if we are talking about campaign, education, environmental work, and at the same time, it is done through groups or programs. And then it may require commitment maybe over a long time. Whereas benevolence, since it's an act that is individual, it is often personal or spontaneous, and it involves giving something to someone, maybe money, goods, or kindness. And it's usually a one-time thing or something you do maybe a little bit from time to time. Now, we are back in studio, and I'll be asking my guests a very important question. I would want to start with Mr. Latif on this one. Should volunteerism be mandatory?
Thank you, Jerry, for having me. Yeah, in some perspective, it has to be mandatory because for the development of the country, it has to be mandatory because some of the citizens, they need to go not only forcefully like through army system, but they have to go through like this is just a patriotic way of contributing to the development of the country. For example, when you go to developed countries like the US, they have also that system where citizens
you serve your country.
You serve the country, or citizens can contribute through their efforts or through money or whatever they have in order to help. So yeah, on that perspective, it has to be mandatory. But when you come back to Africa, we didn't have that education before or that background before. That's a transition. So I think it has to go through a lot of awarenesses for that to happen. So.
Okay, so I will pick Ms. Nadesh straight beside you.
Well, honestly, I would say yes and no. Okay. Yes and no, because as we've seen on the image, there is a difference between volunteerism and benevolence. So I would say benevolence is kind of mandatory, because even before you become a volunteer, you need to start from somewhere. Okay? So you can join a program as a volunteer, but for volunteerism, I would say that you serve somewhere, and then sometimes you get something back from that service that you are doing. Okay. But when you take benevolence, you serve for free. Okay. But in some countries, volunteerism is mandatory because you need to start from there, and then before becoming a professional. When I think countries like Nigeria, even here in Togo, we have that program where you volunteer for one or 2 years before applying for a job or becoming a professional.
Okay. Yeah. So, Ms. Victoire, I'm supposing you agree with them, but I'm sure you have a different perspective.
Thank you. I think volunteerism should not be mandatory because I think like the word is saying, it must come from yourself. Okay. Because when we take it, it will be coming, when it is obliged, then it will be coming civic service you are doing. So I think that has to come from yourself to your community than to be obliged or you have this pressure that at this point I have to do this to my community. No.
Now, he spoke about awareness raising to bring probably that culture maybe more widespread in terms of the African continent, or maybe Togo, Ghana, or the neighboring countries in particular. But there is this other aspect I want us to also look at. Is volunteer service or volunteerism exploited, or is it valued? With your experiences, organizations you've worked with, countries you've been to, do you think volunteerism is exploited? Is it valued, or is it just a means for people to get cheap labor?
To answer that question, I would say in Togo here, from what I've experienced, is a kind of cheap labor and also exploited. Okay. Because many of the organizations that we have here, they are not willing to be paying those who are coming for volunteerism in their organization. Some of them are just willing to give maybe some experience for 3 or 6 months, and then you can go, and so that they won't have to pay your salary and then assurance and other things. Okay. But in other countries, they are paying people. Is not a kind of cheap labor. They value what you come. Yes. So I can say that maybe in some of our countries in Africa, it is a kind of cheap labor, but in some other countries, it has its values. Yes.
Ms. Nadesh was smiling early on.
I mean, I'd love to say that it is cheap labor, but honestly, it depends on the context and where you are doing your volunteer. I mean, which organization you are working on. I would just say it like that, because most of the time I say that some of us that are working with NGOs, honestly, we are volunteers, because we are doing some job with passion, and then if we needed to be paid, you know, as the work that we are doing, I'm not sure that we could get the pay that we deserve. But when you take an NGO in Togo, where someone comes in as a volunteer and as the government's volunteer, because I said we have a program like that in Togo, the payment will be different from someone that is doing volunteerism in UN service, you know. So it depends actually. But if we look at the perspective that most people do not really want to hire professional for the service, and then they prefer going through the government and then getting volunteers for 1 year or 2 years, then I can say that it's cheap labor service. But we can't forget the fact that they are also learning. That's why we call them volunteers. You know.
So, Mr. Latif?
I think the most important thing is the fact that we call it volunteering is already plays, a very bad role to us that are playing that role, because what people don't know is this is an exchange of experience. Like, yes, I'm going there to learn. I'm also going there to use the smallest experience I have and use it in your company for your company to grow, right? Yes. So at least that recognition is very important towards us. And that's why, governmentally speaking, when you go to Nigeria, for example, for the NYSC, they have something like stipend that is given to students.
I think in Ghana they have national service, they do have something.
Yes, they have something like stipend for that. But when we come to, this is also a kind of, I still talk about educational disparity. Francophones, we still have this problem because we don't value that. And because we don't value that, our governments don't value that. It's like, these are people that are just, they have nothing to do and they're just coming just to have
I think there is a notion also about maybe people feeling they are doing a favor but actually giving you an open door.
Exactly. They're like giving you a favor to enter their institution, something like that, which is very bad, by the way. It is something that is normally supposed to be given value to, so that we should, not only us, our younger brothers also that are coming should also contribute to that. Very important.
This brings me into the next aspect of my question is, can everyone be a volunteer? Who can be a volunteer? And when you become a volunteer, who benefits? You, the volunteer, or the community that is benefiting from your service?
I think, one, can everybody be a volunteer? I don't think so, but at least an experienced person. Like, you need to get some experience.
But before you do acquire the experience, you may have acquired it through volunteerism or through maybe a skilled training or, I don't know, education as you come about.
Yeah, so that is how, like, your experiences are needed for you to start serving as a volunteer, which is not just your physical appearance. But
who benefits more now?
This is where the problem is. Who benefits more? Because when you go through volunteerism, normally we say it's the population that is benefiting, like people are the ones benefiting. But, you know, sometimes there are still a lot of parentheses in there because some NGOs don't really cover that aspect. They're just doing things according to protocols and just forget, like, the main point, which is to give back to society or to let society benefit from it. I grew up in some villages where even some NGOs go to these villages and just go and build one toilet and come back and, like, there is nothing, seriously. Meaning that giving back to society or that letting people benefit from that is not that important to them. They are just doing things for protocols and just take pictures, send back, and money is kept for themselves.
Okay, so I'll cross over to Ms. Victor on this one before I come back to Ms. Nadesh. From his perspective, it's like it's a two-edged sword. There could be situations where the community could equally benefit, and there could be situations where the volunteer, him or herself, could also benefit. What is your perspective?
Okay, I can say that both parties are beneficiaries from this volunteering because first, the person who is volunteering himself in maybe an NGO or another association, the person can upgrade his curriculum and also acquire some capacities that maybe if he went just for a work or he cannot gather that. Yes. Now for the society, for example, for us who went through the yearly program, I can say that we have been trying our best to give back because we know that the funds are not there properly as we want, but we are doing our best to give back what we've learned in our different organizations when being volunteer here and there. Okay. So the society also is taking his part from what we've learned, and then ourselves also, we've taken our part.
So it is something that always goes both ways?
Yes, normally.
Okay. She said normally.
I will again make the difference between volunteerism and benevolence. Okay. And you said something earlier that once we are a citizen, you know, or a young citizen, I don't know, whatever, once we come from a community, we need to give something back to the community. But then do we necessarily need to do it through volunteerism? That's a question. But we can do it through benevolence. That's where you can see a teacher, you know, somewhere, but that is also, I don't know, I would say volunteering in an organization, a local organization or somewhere, or even being engaged in some field, wherever, but at least giving back to his or her community, you know. So that's where I don't know, I would like us to think really about the fact that we work for free, we work for ourselves, you know, we are making benefits for the community or whatever. Because again, there is a difference between,
you know, sometimes the line between both of those things can be a bit thin, in the sense that if benevolence comes from an individual, like something from within yourself, like an act of kindness or charity, the act that you are posing out can equally be felt when you are even volunteering. Because if I've applied for a job to probably say go to a community where there is no light, and I decide to buy a generator or something that I can provide light for, maybe even the household where I am, it is an act of benevolence, but it's also volunteerism. Because maybe someone bought that for me, and I'm using that as an act towards other people. So I think that is where sometimes the confusion may come from. But now we can now look at probably the motivation, maybe the intent behind the act that we do can help us to differentiate in terms of if it is a volunteer act or it's a benevolence act. So I'll come to Ms. Victor on this one. From your experiences, what are some of the things that motivated you to engage in either an act of benevolence or volunteerism? For example, the yearly you spoke about earlier on, what motivated you to go to such a program?
I would say first it was passion that brought me into the field of volunteerism, then leading me to yearly, taking me through the whole process, because I think first I was not that proper volunteer as I should be until I take the training of yearly. Then I come across the whole thing of being a volunteer, and especially the other side of giving back to the society. So I would say the yearly training was first a kind of light for me. Then from there I know where to go, what are the issues, or what from my volunteering I can tackle as a problem, and what I can give back from my learning.
So Ms. Nadesh?
Yeah, I'll say the same thing. It's first of all passion, but it's also curiosity for me. Yeah, because I'm very curious and I like to explore many things at the same time. So that's what brought me into that field. And then I also had the chance to participate into many, leadership programs where I learned a lot about volunteerism, and then about how important it was to give back to the community. And now there are many programs that we have initiated where we put our own money because of the passion that we have, for the job that we are doing. And also when we look at the difference and the impact it is making around the community, it actually gives you, some kind of strength to continue what you're doing. So it's first passion, curiosity, and then when you see the impact that it's giving.
Mr. Latif?
Yeah, I think for me it's networking, because passion and curiosity for me is, we have that already for a long time
Not
ago.
everyone has those.
Yeah, so I personally have that already for a long time ago, because I started since 2012. And then it came a time where I realized, come on, it doesn't just stop to passion and curiosity, it goes beyond. Networking now comes in, because sometimes you don't have the necessary contacts for you to get the necessary funds and then do your programs for the people to be benefiting from it. So this is how I understood. So when I went to Yali, I was like, guys, I'm here for contacts. And this is what I did. And that helped me a lot, because I know what I'm getting from it. I know the kind of programs I initiated, and I know the impact they had. Now, but still, there is still bouncing back to the idea of benevolence, which is, I didn't just want to talk about benevolence, because in Africa, we don't have this idea of benevolence is a kind of primitive education to us. We had it already from childhood. We have it. Now, the problem is, when you go to the Western world, for example, they have something they call donorship. They have donors. Donors are the ones they call benevolent people. But donors, still, the fact that they give money or they help financially, still, they have their role to play.
I get it.
And they are still volunteers, and there is still what they gain from it, and there is an agenda behind any kind of dime coming from themselves, coming from their pockets or their banks. So this is how very important it is. Thank God, in Francophone Africa, even when you go to some Anglophone Africa, they don't have this donor thing. The only country or two countries that I know they have is South Africa and Zimbabwe. I think this is where you can find donors. For example, that's why it's very easy. When those people want to even send their students, their citizens, to go abroad and study or for some programs and come back and serve their country, it's very easy, because they have donors that can give money. Yes, but here, you know what happens. So,
having known the three of you personally in some perspective, I'm sure beyond the yearly that we've all been part of, there are some other opportunities or volunteer work that you've done. So if you could help our viewers watching us right now, what are some of those opportunities or volunteer opportunities that you could mention to them? It could be in teaching, could be in health, education, environment, or even in organizations. What are some of those opportunities, either at the places or the fields that you could suggest for some of them?
I know there is an institution based in the US in Virginia called Habitat for Humanity Peninsula in Williamsburg. It's just a small town in Williamsburg.
Okay.
That institution is mainly based into, first of all, they are into environment, and then they are also into, helping people that are from poor background and all those stuff. And they are welcoming everybody from all over the world.
Okay.
Especially West Africans, when you are a West African and you apply, they are welcome, this is your home. So this, for example, is a platform where people can apply to. You can do it online, and when your CV is very good, they can also have you be there and do it. But just for 2 years now, it's been a problem for you to be, you understand. So this is the reality.
Okay, so Ms. Nadesh?
Yeah, before coming back onto that question, I need to remind us, especially the youth that are watching, that we need to start, from somewhere before getting into other, I would say, high level, institution where we want to volunteer, because when you volunteer for the UN, system, it's not the same thing when you volunteer for local organization. So we need to start from somewhere, and that somewhere that's benevolence. Need to start maybe with a local organization, association, or whatever, and then you get to build that your CV, because he talked about CV. So meaning you need to have a background first. And those programs that we have all attended, it's because we had an impact that we made in our community. That's where we got selected. When I take the Mandela Washington Fellowship, over 7,000 people apply. But at the end of the day, only 700 get selected. So that means it's very selective, and then you need to have, an impact in your community before. And that impact, you can only have it within your associations, through benevolence, before even you start with volunteerism. Okay. So if I may suggest some organization, I would say the UNV programs, France Volontaire, and now I would say likely or not, we do not have the yearly programs anymore. Not now. I also have my program where they can come. So
your program is what?
NAV mentorship program. And other local associations.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know you're an entrepreneur, so maybe you can help us with that angle, because some people need money.
For me, I think if you really want to be a volunteer, like Nadesh already said it, you have to start from somewhere. And I think from the training we had, that make the difference between being a real volunteer and trying just to put up something in your curriculum. Okay. So most of the training the people of West Africa can get those opportunities online from now, and they can have it from Africa here. Okay. They post recent program, and then you can apply from there and then follow up if they write back to you, if you have to do something, some interviews before going. But if you are also likely in the environment, you can participate to the DOS Cup.
Okay.
Yes. So just first you have to know what you are really into, not be, maybe today you are in environment, tomorrow in teaching. No, know what you really are in, and then go for it. And after, the result will be coming.
So I'm going to sum up my very last question, two into one. First of all, we spoke about the motivation, so I think that is more or less like a personal solution you can give people. I want us to look at maybe what role or contribution societies and governments can do to encourage people to go into the line of volunteerism. I mean, not as a full-time thing, but at least have that experience. So I want to start with you on this one. You are in the education sector, so basically you have some notions about what government can do so that maybe young people or even the adults can have that line in terms of volunteerism.
I think there is an initiative that the government, for example, in this country is already doing, which especially volunteerism in terms of teaching. Okay. The government is already doing that. There is 2 institutions, ANPE and ANVT, I think, that are playing very great roles because
the name of the second one again?
ANVT.
Okay.
That are playing very important roles as far as channeling these young people that were unemployed now to through the volunteering system to engage into the field for teaching and all those stuff. So I think these 2 institutions are already doing that. Just that the government should still have an eye more on that, and for accountability reasons, because we still have a lot of young people that are unemployed. So if that channel is very well taken care of, the unemployment rate is going to be down.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Nadesh.
Yeah, I think first of all our governments need to make volunteerism mandatory. Honestly, because it's a learning process, and if you have the chance to go somewhere, I don't know, leave your comfort zone, go somewhere and volunteer for at least 1 year, you have the chance to learn something and then meet other people and then maybe change in some way your behavior and have an experience that you may not have. We know many people that have started a job because they apply, for a government job, and then they are selected. Of course, they started the work, and the skill is not there because after undergrads or something, they just jumps on it. But if that volunteerism was mandatory, actually, right after undergrads, they do it for 1 year or 2 years, and then they can come back and start working for the government. I think it will be very helpful.
That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great. So I will take your last summation on this, and then we wrap up on it.
Okay, I think like Latif have said it also, ANVT is giving awards to some of those volunteer teachers that made themselves kind of special in what they are doing. So sometimes they have to vote for who is your this teacher that you think,
best teacher.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think more things like that should be coming not only in the domain of education, but in the different domain that we have, so that everyone, maybe entrepreneurs also can have their own. And I think Nadesh took part in something, I know that is not from our country, but when they say the top leaders of the country, they even did it for our last first minister.
Okay.
To be those impacting women in Africa, and she was in those people. So I think we need more of those things to encourage those who are trying to give back, those who are volunteering, to know that they are recognized, we are seeing what you are doing, so that they can continue.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you all very much for gracing the KEYPOINT platform today. I've had Victoire Som, who is an entrepreneur. I've had Ms. Nadeja Birebu-Monge, who is a jurist, and Mr. Abdul Latif Wali, who is a lecturer, all of them volunteers. So we've explored how a person's effort can transform a community, as well as the challenges that come with it, whether we are driven by passion, by social responsibility, by pressure, or just the spirit of giving. We should understand that it continues to shape the world in every little bit that it can. Sometimes we do it quietly, sometimes we do it with the noise that comes with it. So once again, thank you very much for coming. We'll be seeing you next week on the KEYPOINT. Bye.